Going it alone as a business owner. I know I've been there, and I've even said things like, I'd rather fail on my own than to succeed with help. Let's talk about that today. If you are a small business owner, operator, if you're a family business owner or operator, this show is for you and about creating time wealth and freedom on our calendars and helping you create a time wealthy advantage. This show is for you. Welcome to the show today. I'd rather fail on my own than to succeed with help. Although I never actually said those specific words, I have absolutely felt that way for a number of years before I finally realized how how futile it was that I was trying to do all this stuff on my own. And I've said this before, where and I work with quite a few business owners where this is true. In fact, every single one of the business owners that I do work with, this is true, where they are really smart and they have a really good work ethic, which on its face you might say, well, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. Why are you kind of dogging someone like that? I'm not. In fact, it is a good thing that they are intelligent and that they have a really good work ethic. The problem is they don't know when to shut that off. The problem is when they don't recognize that the problem that's come to them isn't a problem for them to solve. For them to solve. It's not a problem for them to figure out. Right? So there's a story of a guy. I'm going to kind of make this more of a composite, not necessarily someone specific, but it's kind of a composite story of a guy who got out of the military and he started a business of his own. And he struggled from the first day. And it was one of those scenarios where he struggled. I mean, he had plenty of customers and he was good at his work, but unfortunately, the administrative stuff that caught up to him almost immediately started to overwhelm him. He couldn't handle all of the calls that were coming in. He couldn't handle the lead flow. He couldn't handle the sales part of it. He said, "I'm just not a good salesman. I'll just kind of price what I think it's good for." And because he didn't really have a great relationship with money, he grew up poor. He didn't really value himself highly enough. So of course, even more people came in because they wanted his service. And recognizing that he was just depositing money into his bank account and wasn't really paying his bills on time, because that just became another administrative task that he just didn't have time for. And then he started to run up some credit card debt. So the credit card debt, because it's got a very very high payment structure, he was having trouble on that. He started defaulting on the credit cards, just simply not because he didn't have the money, but because he was such a barn fire when it came to administration. And that was just the nature of how he ran his business. So eventually, he got to know quite a few people in and around his community, and everybody knew him for his work, and no one ever questioned his work ethic. He had an incredible work ethic and would work early in the morning till late at night, but he still struggled. And he was like, "Man, I got into business so I could have more time, not less time. I got into business on my own so I could be my own boss, not be ordered around by my customers all day." And that was really his life. And he worked every day of the week, including Sunday. And even when he was in church, he was answering text messages and checking his phone and doing all these different things that he would have much rather been able to just wind down and shut things off. But that wasn't always the case. For the first several years, he wore that busyness like a badge of honor, and just out there hustling and making sure that he was, no one would ever question him of his work ethic and ever call him lazy. So he got invited to a chamber after hours one evening by a guy who was kind of a business associate of his. He says, "Why don't you come and hang out? We'll network with some people in the community. Get to meet some of the muckety mucks." And he's like, "Well, that's not really my thing. I don't really like to network. I kind of really, he kind of said he doesn't really like people," which wasn't true at all. It's just that he really, if he was being honest with himself, he was really afraid of looking stupid. He didn't know how to network. He didn't know where to go or even where to park downtown. He didn't know. He didn't want to show up and he's the guy in in a, pretending to be an adult or pretending to be something that he wasn't. And the reality was he was a business owner. I mean, if we're really being honest, he was actually really self-employed, but he had his own business. And he just felt like a fraud if he just showed up to some business networking thing and didn't know how to act, didn't know where to park, didn't know how to dress, and didn't know what to say. Or, he didn't know any of that. He didn't know how to navigate any of that. So fortunately, this this guy kind of became a mentor to him, and he said, "Look, man," he's like, "Do you have any business cards?" He said, "No, I never really needed any." He says, "Look, let's get you some business cards. Just clean yourself up. Don't show up with mud on your boots." He said, "Just wear a decent pair of jeans. Get yourself a sport coat, a jacket. It doesn't, he's like, he had one. And just stick with me all night. I'll show you what to do." And even though he didn't necessarily want to admit that he didn't know, the fact that this guy kind of laid the groundwork for him and tilled the soil up for him a little bit to allow this to happen really made a big difference in his life. And this is when he started to recognize how he did actually need other people in his life that knew things that he just didn't know. And that was the real where things really started to change for him. Didn't change overnight. So of course he gets, he winds up early. He says, don't show up late. Make sure you're there at least 15 minutes early. So he didn't have a horrible relationship with time, but because he was so overworked, it was a big deal. So he made sure he stopped his work at around 3:30, got home, got cleaned up, got a decent pair of clothes on, and he walked him through where to park and where to go and all this other stuff, and he met his would-be mentor there in the parking lot. And said, and you could, and his mentor could tell that he was very, very nervous. So as they're walking in, so the mentor and this guy who is this largely self-employed individual, they walk in and had a great time. They just hung out, talked with some people. He recognized a few folks. People remarked about, "Oh, you clean up well," and he really didn't know what to say. So he kind of, his mentor helped him navigate the conversation a little bit, and it was really, really great. And then he got invited to a BNI chapter by one of the people there. And a BNI, if you're not familiar with it, it's a networking organization. And I give so much of my professional development credit to belonging to a BNI. In fact, I was in BNI for over 14 years, and just I can't say enough about it. And in my scenario, this was very much me. I went to a BNI chapter not really even understanding or even knowing what networking really was, what real networking really was, not just standing around talking about, how the Cubs are doing that season, or what football scores are or whatever. I didn't care about that stuff. But real networking is about establishing that connection and about creating interdependence, this interdependent network of people that you can call out and rely on when you need them. It was really interesting that I was thinking when I was thinking about putting this video together, how recently I have leaned back on my web of network of people that I hadn't necessarily, they haven't really fallen off, but we network differently now because I've evolved, they've gone on to different things, I'm doing different things. But it was interesting that how in the past I would hesitate to call that individual because I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to ask for help. I didn't want to appear that I didn't know. And once I've gotten over that, and I would say I've gotten over that maybe in the last 10, 12 years, but up until that point, I was very much that guy in the story. It wasn't my story exactly, but I did have people who reached out to me and kind of walked me through things that I didn't otherwise know. This guy named Ron, he was a property manager. I could never repay him for the things that he's done for me, just because he did it, just because he's a decent human. And he recognized what it's like just trying to be a business owner, or just be a grown-up. And I lacked a lot of those skills. So it was interesting as I continued on and I went into BNI, and I recognized that there's this seemingly unwritten or unspoken rule that you either need to be hyper dependent on others or hyper independent, where you're just basically making sure that you don't need anybody. And that both ends of that spectrum are not helpful, especially in the business world, especially even in the adult world, but in general, but especially in the business world. And I came to recognize that the depth of my network was really resembling the value of my net worth. Like I started making more money when I started hitching my wagon to more and more of the right people, and not the people that were just tearing me down, or or just kind of stuck in life or not really going anywhere. And that really changed a lot of things for me. So, and that's where I think that interdependence and establishing a network of interdependence, just even basically as adults, is really, really important, but massively more important as business owners and business operators. And even if you're self-employed and you want to learn and grow out of that. So, for example, I was there was someone who I know really, really well that used to work for the Chamber of Commerce here in my town. And I don't know enough about how chambers of commerce operate. So when I was thinking like, man, I want to get in front of more chambers of commerce so I can actually connect with their avatar, right? The people that they're trying to connect with, because I'm trying to go upstream, right? So as I'm engaging in my networking, I'm trying to think of people. I like working with business owners. I like working with family business owners. How do I get in front of them? Well, who's already in front of them? Well, chambers of commerce very often, right? The Better Business Bureau, the National Federation of Independent Business, the NFIB. These are organizations that get in front of them. So how could I get in front of them? How could I use them to get in front of the avatar that we're both seeking? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, why don't I call this friend of mine? Her name is Risa. So I called Risa. I say, Risa, can I ask? I said, do you have a few minutes? She says, absolutely. I said, I need about 10 minutes. I said, can you tell me, what you used to do there at the chamber? And she told me, and I said, okay, now let me tell you why I'm asking the question. And she told me about 5 minutes about what she did. And then I told her what I was trying to do. I said, just trying to connect with these folks, you maybe get in front of them, maybe do lunch and learns, things like that. And she laid out, basically, I looked at the phone when I hung up, and it was 21 minutes and 15 seconds that we talked. And that was 21 minutes and 15 seconds of absolute solid platinum. I mean, it was so good. I would even say it was 21 minutes and 15 seconds of solid rhodium, even massively more valuable than gold. It really was, though. It was such valuable information that she gave me, and just, maybe some pitfalls to look out for, other things to look, to maybe consider, but really, really helpful information. I would not have had access to that information had I just thought, well, I just need to kind of figure this out on my own. I'm just going to kind of wing it or just fail on my own rather than try to succeed with help. And here's the interesting thing, is that Risa was absolutely thrilled to be able to help me, because she gets to talk about something that she knew about, and she got to be in contribution. And when I hung up the phone, I was so grateful to her that it made me realize the how much we actually need to be interdependent on people, and creating and nurturing and keep working that network and continue to do it. One real interesting thing, and we're going to land the plane on this video, but how many people reach out to me on Facebook or social media? And I always reach out to them, especially on Facebook. If someone reaches out to me, sends me a friend request, I will always say, hey, thanks for the friend request. Have we met? And partly it's to make sure it's actually not a fake account. But the other side of this is, just because I want to see what their intentions are. Like, why are you reaching out to me? And I can't tell you how many times, vastly, this is more true than the exception, is that they say, oh, I'm just reaching out to network. And I never, ever, ever hear from that person again. Like, and I'll even reach out to them, say, hey, what are you networking on? What are you working on right now? What are you doing? And I will try to engage with them, and I never, ever, ever hear from that person again. And I'm like, man, what in the world? You said you're networking, but you do nothing with it. So are you just trying to build this massive network, or just appear to be, known to all these different people, but you're not actually doing anything? You're not doing anything to build a relationship. I usually just unfriend those people. They never even notice. They never even notice that I've unfriended them, because they've done nothing to nurture the relationship. So I just want to encourage you not to get caught in that trap where you feel like you need to know everything. You feel like you're going to look stupid if you set yourself out there and you don't really, know what it is that you're heading into. Man, we all were first timers once. So just reach out to someone that may know. Reach out, allow them to be that consultant in your life, and man, just get over that. So, for those of you who are watching this and actually may need some assistance in something, if you've been watching this show or this series for a while, you kind of know my what I'm good at in terms of helping business owners in all aspects of your life. Again, I'm a life and business strategist. If you would like to schedule a free 30-minute call, we can talk about anything. It is not a sales call. I am happy to do that. I will put a link in the show notes and the description here, and you can click on that. But I will tell you, it is for a limited time. If you click on that link and it's no longer working, I have closed that down. So again, I just want to let you know that is out there for you to use until it is no longer there. All right. Have a great rest of you guys. Have a great rest of your day, guys. We'll see you next time.